Everyone out there in YouTube land, we've been reading your messages and you are in for a special treat today. Instructional designer Kelly Watson will be joining us today to share a little bit about microlearning. So Kelly, what have you got to share with us today? Thanks for having me, Kelly. It's really great to be here. So welcome to Microlearning about microlearning, where we'll model microlearning concepts as we learn a little bit about microlearning. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I'll have you take a look here at our lesson objectives. Please keep in mind that there are only two learning objectives. You'll learn a little bit more about this, but typically microlearning modules include only one or two super focused learning objectives. All right, so think back. How many times have you presented this amazing lesson only to have a classroom full of students stare at you in confusion or give you a blank look when you're finished? Now, of course, I've over-exaggerated a bit, but no doubt that as attention spans have waned and technology has advanced, educators all over the globe have struggled in recent years to get content to their learners in the most impactful way possible. Today, people of all ages have become reliant on their smartphones or tablets to acquire small chunks of information quickly as they are needed. And how many times a day do you say, I'm going to ask the Google that and whip out your iPhone and tap away? Like right here. With the big surge in popularity of smartphones, educators realized that this concept was an amazing way to deliver content and engage learners. The microlearning strategy makes it easy to dole out content to learners in short bursts that pair well with our shortened attention spans. So what is this microlearning? Well, basically, microlearning is an instructional strategy focused on presenting contents in engaging, bite-sized chunks to promote retention. Content can be shared using a variety of medium, including text to infographics, to interactive multimedia resources, to short videos like this. It can be used in schools at all levels from K-12 to higher ed, all sorts of adult learning situations, and many other applications. Delivering content in small segments also allows for the learner to focus on one idea or concept at a time instead of having to try to absorb a lot of information at once, hence the one or two learning objectives that I mentioned earlier. Now, you might be thinking, isn't microlearning the same as just-in-time learning? Well, not exactly. Microlearning can be implemented just in time, but a key feature of microlearning is it allows learners to complete course modules in short periods of time, keeping everything interconnected. On the other hand, just-in-time learning provides learners with what they need to know in the moment they need to know it, like specific definitions or quick reference guides. Anything that gives them the resources for success without requiring them to go through an entire module or course to get the answer. And while content that needs to be delivered just in time could be delivered using the microlearning instructional strategy, the two strategies aren't interchangeable. Now, you might be scratching your heads and wondering, sure, this sounds cool and pretty neat, but why should I use microlearning with my learners? Well, micro lessons can increase retention rates because learners don't need to remember as much information at once when the content is broken up and shared in small chunks. Not to mention, because presenting content into small chunks that are readily accessible, learners can learn at their own pace, wherever they are, and most importantly, when they are ready. Finally, because only one to two learning objectives are focused on, learners are only required to digest small chunks of information at a time. This makes comprehension easier with less effort. So to ensure that your learners are progressing towards their training objectives, you can use short quizzes, but keep in mind that including multiple knowledge checks or other forms of assessments at the end of each microlearning segment may not be the most effective approach. Learners can become frustrated if they are required to complete a quiz every time they access microlearning, as it counteracts the short, bite-sized nature of microlearning and can cause the learning to become disjointed. Can you imagine a quiz or knowledge check every few minutes? To me, it would be like watching videos on YouTube and then they stop and play an ad and you get frustrated waiting for the skip ad button to pop up so you can click it and continue on with the video. All right, so we've looked at the what and the why of microlearning. Now let's dig a little deeper and consider the theory behind microlearning. So the forgetting curve is a memory model created by German psychologist Hermann Ebbinghaus. Basically, this memory model shows how we lose information over time if we don't try to retain it, and it helps us to tackle the common challenges of forgetting information without adequate retention. Because it wasn't for this forgetting curve, our learners could go through a unit once and it would stick in their brains first time. The graph on this slide shows the process by which forgetting occurs. According to Ebbinghaus, when we first learn something, the information disappears at an exponential rate without retention. We lose most of our newly acquired knowledge in the first couple of days, after which the rate of loss tapers off. The implications of this for our students is obvious. More than half of memory loss occurs in the first hour, and a day or two after attending class or going through their online content, students will have forgotten approximately 75% of what was learned. But keep in mind that even though the forgetting curve is a natural process, the process of forgetting can be disruptive. Even though it is natural for people to forget much of what they have learned immediately following an experience, simple processes can be used to slow down forgetting and to help us retain much of the information we will need to recall at a later date. For example, the day we need to take a test. Where does microlearning come into all of this? Well, the microlearning concept can be used to tackle this forgetting issue. Splitting the content into small pieces and recalling different parts of it over small pockets of time can help improve knowledge retention and productivity. Plus, as microlearning content is intended to be perpetually reviewed, we retain more and more of the information. We've been discussing microlearning and why to use it, but what does microlearning look like? Well, all of these things listed and more. It's all of these things listed and more. Just keep in mind that effective microlearning includes remembering that the human brain is not wired to maintain focus for hours on end, and that we learn better when the content is delivered in short bursts, as learning in stretches of 10 minutes or less that matches the working memory capacity and attention spans of learners today. Well, that's it for today. For more on microlearning, use the QR code below to check out the short video, What is Microlearning?